Steve Carell's life and career have always seemed wrapped in a mix of luck, timing, and quiet determination. Born on August 16, 1962, at Emerson Hospital in Concord, Massachusetts, he was the youngest of four brothers in a hard-working family. His father, Edwin, was an electrical engineer and his mother, Harriet, a psychiatric nurse. Their last name had once been Carell, but Edwin shortened it to Carell so it would be easier to fit into American life. That small decision reflected the struggles immigrant families faced after World War II, when assimilation often felt like survival. The Carells lived in Acton, Massachusetts, where money was tight but education was always the priority. Steve quickly learned to use humor as a shield. By the time he was 10, he was already using jokes to ease pressure, and that coping skill would end up shaping his life. As a boy, he often felt small and awkward, especially in the competitive prep schools he attended, first at the Fenn School and later at Middlesex. He played ice hockey as a goalie, a punishing position that required toughness, especially in the 1970s when youth players lacked modern protective gear. The sport taught him endurance and grit, though he never lost the quiet shyness that set him apart. That same loneliness drove him toward performance, and he began appearing in school plays, discovering a comfort on stage that he couldn't always find in everyday life. By graduation in 1980, he knew he wanted to pursue performing more seriously, so he left for Denison University in Ohio, where he studied history but poured most of his energy into theater and improv. He played goalie on the college hockey team, hosted a late-night radio show under the name Sapphire Steve Carell, and performed in dozens of shows with Denison's improv group, Burpee's Seedy Theatrical Company. Those years gave him confidence, taught him to think on his feet, and convinced him that comedy wasn't just a hobby, it was a calling. After finishing college in 1984, Carell took a job as a mail carrier in Littleton, Massachusetts. The work was grueling. He walked long routes in punishing weather, was once bitten by a dog, and even got a flat tire on his first day. His boss told him he was too slow and after 7 months he quit. That same year, he packed his things and moved to Chicago to pursue acting. It was a gamble that nearly broke him. He auditioned for the famed Second City comedy troupe and was rejected at first, but kept trying until he was accepted in 1989. He spent years teaching improv, waiting tables, and taking small roles in children's theater to survive. One of his earliest paid acting jobs was in a touring musical called Nat Scat Private Eye, and he even appeared in fast food commercials. He met his wife, Nancy Walls, at Second City, and the two married in 1995. Their early years were marked by financial struggle, but they pushed forward together. His big television break came in 1996 with The Dana Carvey Show, a short-lived sketch program infamous for its bizarre, shocking content, like a sketch with Bill Clinton breastfeeding animals. The show collapsed after only 7 episodes, but it gave Carell and his fellow performer Stephen Colbert a showcase. Their skit as nauseated waiters would later help land them jobs on The Daily Show. Carell also lent his voice to the animated Ambiguously Gay Duo, a parody cartoon that stirred both laughs and outrage. Though the sketches sparked backlash from conservative groups, Carell always regarded the role as an important step in his comedy journey. Television in the late 1990s was unsteady for him. He had a small role in the sitcom Over the Top, which collapsed after just 3 episodes, and he endured mishaps like a set accident that left his arm burned. In 1999, he joined The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, performing more than 100 satirical segments over the next 6 years. While some pieces left him uncomfortable, feeling like they mocked vulnerable people, the job sharpened his deadpan delivery and honed the timing that would make him famous. He also endured behind-the-scenes battles, including a lawsuit in 1999 when a colleague accused him of stealing a short film script. The case settled quietly, but it shook him and made him more protective of his creative work. Carell's profile began to rise in films. In 2003, he appeared in Bruce Almighty as Evan Baxter, the stiff newscaster whose live meltdown became an iconic scene. The role was small but unforgettable, and it led to a spin-off, Evan Almighty, a few years later. In 2004, he broke through with Anchorman, stealing scenes as Brick Tamland, the clueless weatherman whose improvised line, "I love lamp," became a comedy classic. His willingness to push himself, even eating bizarre and unpleasant prop food, showed his dedication to making a scene work. Soon after, He voiced Hammy the squirrel in Over the Hedge, and proved his range with a tender performance in Little Miss Sunshine. By then it was clear he could balance slapstick with depth. Everything changed with The Office. NBC launched the American version in 2005, with Carell starring as Michael Scott. The pilot had strong ratings but quickly lost half its audience, and the show was nearly cancelled. What saved it was the release of Carell's film, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, that same summer. The film, which he co-wrote and starred in, was a surprise hit, grossing $177 million worldwide. Suddenly Carell was a movie star, and NBC renewed The Office. Over the next 6 seasons, the show blossomed into a cultural touchstone, making Michael Scott one of television's most memorable characters. Carell won a Golden Globe in 2006 and was nominated for multiple Emmys, though he never won. Behind the scenes he improvised many scenes, often injuring himself in the process, but his mix of awkwardness and heart made Michael Scott unforgettable. By 2010, as season 6 ended, Carell hadn't planned to leave. He was willing to sign on for more seasons, but NBC executives stayed silent. A casual remark in a BBC interview, where he mentioned season 7 might be his last, was blown into headlines. NBC executives never reached out to correct the narrative, and the silence devastated him. Crew members later confirmed he wanted to stay, but with no offer made, his exit was essentially forced. Producer allies had already left the network, and the new leadership underestimated his value. To the public, Carell framed his departure as a family decision, but behind the scenes, it was a bitter moment. Cast and crew described it as baffling and heartbreaking. When the truth emerged years later, fans realized NBC had simply let him go. Even after leaving The Office in 2011, Carell's career only expanded. He starred in Crazy Stupid Love, balancing comedy and heartbreak, and later shocked audiences with his chilling turn as John DuPont in Foxcatcher, which earned him an Oscar nomination in 2015. He continued to thrive in animation, voicing Gru in Despicable Me, a role that became iconic worldwide and spawned billion-dollar sequels. In 2019, he returned to television in The Morning Show, this time tackling darker themes about media and scandal alongside Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. He even tried something lighter again with Space Force on Netflix, showing he was never afraid to take risks. Through all of this, Carell stayed grounded. He and Nancy raised 2 children, Elizabeth and John, while keeping their life relatively private.